We've reached the top three. It's our countdown of the 10 most noteworthy storylines from UNC athletics from the past academic year. Who's on the podium? You're about to find out.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Wednesday, August 2nd, 2023. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade, and I want to thank you for joining us to make Locked On Tar Heels your first listener watch every single day. You've joined us at a really good time. You everydayers, you already know this. Glad you're here. If you're new or if you're a visitor to the show, let me encourage you to go back and check out the past couple of days, because right now, with it being the beginning of August, we're doing a countdown of what I have come up with as a top 10 list of the most noteworthy big storylines of last academic year at North Carolina. So that entire 2022-23 season is great. Football camp starts today. And so before I know we're getting excited, we're looking ahead to all that, but before we fully give ourselves to 23-24, let's stop and look back. I think this is always so fun to be able to do. Now, keep in mind, I'm not saying these are the top 10 moments, like the most, like the best moments or the championship moments. Just my choices, Isaac's, not yours. And I say that because I'd love to know what yours are, and you probably feel differently than I do. Let me know. Love to hear it. But my choices for the top 10 impactful or noteworthy moments from last year, things that made a big difference. They could be good, they could be bad, they could be changes to what's going on across the country or at Carolina, could just be a big storyline that meant a lot to me or something like that. And what's cool is, as I said, this is spread out across the last 3 episodes. So if you missed Mondays or yesterday's, go check it out. I'm going to link to it right up here. I'm going to link to Tuesdays, where we looked at numbers 6 through 4, and you can also go back and catch 10 through 7. So today, we are going to get to the podium, numbers 3 through 1. I've also got a couple honorable mentions. Now, the rest of the week, here's how it's going to go down. Those of you that are with the show all the time, you know that in the summer, we're doing a basketball roster preview series. We've hit the freshmen and sophomores. Tomorrow's show, Coach Pat Kilby joins me to talk about upcoming junior transfer from Stanford, Harrison Ingram. And then on Friday's show, Coach Pack is going to be with us for a second show this week. It's awesome. And we're doing a summer pickup basketball draft of who we'd like to see come play with the Tar Heels and why in the summer. Make sure you tune in for that. It'll be a lot of fun. I've said it every show. I want to say it again for this one. Man, I have really enjoyed putting this list together. I've been going back and watching a lot of the footage and remembering things that happened. And as I always say, it's the agony and the ecstasy, right? I guess I should say, for those of you listening, you don't know, I just went agony and put my hands up. Agony would be down and ecstasy would be up. And every moment that comes in between those, because it's just what makes sports fun is the mountains are better because you have the valleys, and the valleys are worse because you know what the mountain feels like. And but that's why we keep coming back. And because of the stories of the young men and women that play these sports, the coaches that coach them, and everyone else that is involved. And so that's what we want to talk about. Well, going to be a fun thing today to get to our final 3, number 1, 2, and 3, gold, silver, bronze. Let's start with the bronze medal, and it's our guy, Armando Bacot. And a specific moment is that Armando became the UNC all-time leader in career rebounds and career double-doubles in the same game. Oh, and by the way, in that game, the Tar Heels beat NC State. So it was just a coming together of a lot of really good things. And it's just a cool moment to be able to celebrate Armando Bacot. So this was back on January 21st. Also loved it because that's just 4 days before my birthday, so I got to celebrate. Listen, here's the deal with Armando. This dude is legitimately cementing himself as one of the best and most beloved Tar Heels in Carolina history because of his, from the get-go, from the moment he committed to North Carolina and recruiting everyone in sight and still doing it now because of the transfer portal. He's able to do that. He's getting people from other sports to come to Carolina. I mean, you just love to see it. This dude loves Carolina, and I think it's fair to say that Carolina loves Armando Bacot as well. And so here's the thing. Anytime you can find yourself at or near the top of anything in the Carolina basketball record book, you know you've done something. You know you've done something impressive. But to top everyone in terms of career rebounds and in terms of career double-doubles, man, that's something wild and different right there. I mean, you just think of all the names that he has had to pass on the way to both of these records. And it's not like, I know people have often clamored for asterisks for COVID eligibility stuff. Listen, this dude he's coming back for a 5th year, but he didn't need it to set these records. He did it in 4 years. And yes, I know it's a different type of Carolina team right now because Tyler Hansbrough had to contend with Deion Thompson or what, you know what I'm saying, in terms of rebounds and double-doubles. But I mean, it hasn't always been that way. Not everyone in Carolina had to contend with that. And so, I mean, you just got to say, look what he did. He knocked this out. He did it. Armando Bacot is an absolute dude. So let's look at the rebound side of it first, then the double-doubles, and we'll move on. So now, as of the end of last season, Armando has 1,335 career rebounds. He had 334 last year, 511 his junior year as Carolina went to the national championship game, 227 his sophomore year, 263 his freshman year. He is one of just 10 Tar Heels who have amassed 1,000 or more career rebounds. So specifically, as we said, he passed the record on January 21st. Carolina knocked off NC State that day 80-69. And of course, it was Tyler Hansbrough whose record he beat. Tyler's record was 1,219 rebounds. And in that game, Mondo had 23 points and 18 boards. And it was that 17th rebound in which he passed Tyler. Oh, and by the way, that game was also the 68th time in his career he amassed double-digit rebounds, a record he already held in terms of Carolina career and now further extended. All right, the double-doubles side of this equation. Because in that same game, this is wild to me that this all culminated together at the same time. Armando recorded his 61st career double-double, passing Billy Cunningham's mark of 60. Just wild and silly. I mean, and you probably remember Armando got off to a really slow start last year. It was like, what is happening? At least in by his standard. But finally started to pick it up and bring these together. Now, Armando, what he will not do in double-doubles is come close to sniffing the 40 straight double-doubles that Billy Cunningham had. That is just absolutely bonkers to me that he did that. The model of consistency. Now, here's the other thing about this NC State game. Don't forget, this was the same game. This game was chock-a-block full of stuff. This was the same game where Terquavion Smith had that breakaway, hard foul from Leaky, and Smith was down on the floor for a long time, had to be carted off. Just, I mean, for safety's sake and for procedures and all that stuff. Thankfully, it was fine and was back playing. But, right, like that was all wrapped up in this same game. Then I'll never forget the image of Mondo and Tyler Hansbrough at center court. Just Tyler Hansbrough, I've said over and over and over again, is my favorite Tar Heel of all time. And so just, you know, I'm a records are meant to be broken type of guy. I love to see Tyler at the top of it, but I just think it's fun to see others coming along and being part of that. Now, we talked about that 5th year earlier and how Mondo doesn't need an asterisk, but it's fun to see what he can do with it, right? And so he's got this 5th year to see what he can do with both of these records. And I'm going to go on record right now as saying I think that Armando Bacot is on the precipice of having an absolute monster 5th year in college. A couple reasons for that. Number one, there's just a different sense of urgency when you realize that it is your last year. And make no mistake, it is his last year. There is no more eligibility to be had. I mean, I guess if he, you know, please, dear goodness, don't let this happen, but went down with an injury, season ending and could apply for a waiver there or a redshirt season. That could happen. But this is it. This is the end for Armando. So he realizes that. Number 2, has all this fuel and energy coming off of what happened last year. I mean, even go back 2 years, all the fuel and energy coming off of losing the national championship, all the fuel and energy off of missing the tournament last year. Armando is driven and ready to go. And then thirdly, I think a reason Armando is going to have a monster year is Elliot Cadeau. Armando has not had a player, not of Elliot's caliber, but of his style and type that will be really beneficial for big men. And so I think Armando Bacot, more than anyone else on this roster, is going to benefit from what Elliot Cadeau does this season. Boy, oh boy, Armando Bacot, what a career he's had, and we get one more ride with it. Congrats on those records. That is number 3 for me on my list of the 10 most noteworthy things that happened last academic year in UNC sports. We're going to get to number 2 in just a second. That field hockey absolute wagon of a team that Karen Shelton continues to have. Man, got to talk about all their accolades once again. We'll do that in just a second. But first, this episode of Locked on Tar Heels is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have the best access to the best qualified candidates available. And that's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs, which helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. It's easy to create a free job post, and then you just add that job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Beyond that, you use simple tools like screening questions to help make it easy to focus on the candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and then ultimately hire. Let's be honest, the right team member can have a positive and measurable impact on your business. All of this is why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs number 1 in delivering quality hires versus the leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free right now at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Once again, that's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. I want to thank you again for making Locked on Tar Heels your first listen or watch every single day. I want to remind you that we've got a mailbag episode coming up in a couple weeks and would love to have your submissions for that. One of the cool new things you can do is I'm starting to ask people to send in video questions so that we can find new ways to involve you through getting to see your face or hear your voice on the show. All you got to do is make a video of your listener or viewer question, 15 seconds or less. Give us your name, where you're from, and your question. We'll add it into the show or, pick a lot. We probably won't be able to use all of them, but I also like to sprinkle those in throughout the year, even when we're not doing mailbag episodes. So go ahead, start sending those in and we'll populate them all and it'll be great. All right, moving to the silver medal position on our countdown. Man, we got to talk about field hockey. These ladies are an absolute, just dominant force. What the women's soccer team was for so long, field hockey is now. I mean, it is wild. I tell you, wild. Undefeated national champions. And we got to talk about Erin Matson going from national championship again, graduation, and is now the new head coach. So kind of 2 storylines here together with the field hockey team. But they went 21-0 this past it was actually 2021 during the season, 6-0 in conference play, ended up beating Northwestern 2-1 in the national championship, which was really cool because they had lost to Northwestern not in the national championship, but in the tournament the year prior. Now, here's the thing. 21 matches for field hockey, 9 of them, 42.9% were shutouts. That's awesome. I love to see that. Here's another thing. You look at it, it's like, 21, cool. I bet they had some hard matches. Okay, hang on, stop. 21 matches, 21 wins, 17 of those were against ranked opponents. 17 of their 21 matches were against ranked opponents. 10 of the 21 were against top 10 teams, and obviously beat them all. 5 of the 21 were against top 5 teams. Can you imagine playing a full quarter of your schedule against top 5 teams in the land and smoking all of them? Because that's what the Tar Heels did in field hockey last year. I love it. I love it so hard. I could go through the list of those. I'm not going to bore you with it. You can go and look at it. But I mean, it's just insane. I wrote it all down because I love to see it. But and it's not just last year, right? This is a celebration at the end of Karen Shelton's career, because that's a big part of this too. But this team has won 4 of the last 5 national championships in field hockey. In those 4 championship years, they've lost a grand total of 1 time. That's right. In 3 of the last 5 years, Carolina field hockey has gone undefeated. So in those 4 of the last 5 seasons when they've won the national championship, they're combined 86-1. It just befuddles me to think about that. Not only have they won 4 of the last 5 national championships, they've been in the championship 11 of the last 16 seasons, winning 6 of those. I mean, you just have to marvel at what it has been. Now, obviously, a lot of what's happened recently is because of the team, but led by Erin Matson. Won all 4 of those last, for the last 5 seasons they won. She was part of all of those 5 ACC championships. She was a 3-time recipient of field hockey's version of the Heisman, basically. 3 times, national player of the year. There's only one other player in women's field hockey NCAA history to do that 3 times. You know who it was? Her coach, Karen Shelton. Pretty cool stuff. And now it's even cooler because she's replacing her. Erin Matson, all-time leading scorer in ACC history, all-time leading scorer in NCAA tournament history. This woman has won all the accolades, all the awards. Unbelievable. All the records. And now, as I've alluded to a couple times, there is a head coaching change. Karen Shelton retired in December after the national championship after 42 seasons. She started at Carolina as the head coach in 1981 as a 23-year-old. And this was her 10th national title. 25 ACC championships, the winningest coach in women's field hockey history. And now Erin Matson does replace her, becoming the 5th head coach. And here's the wacky timeline, for Erin Matson. The national championship game was Sunday, November 20th. She graduated on December 12th, less than a month later, and then was hired, or it was announced, I should say, publicly as Erin Matson being the new head coach on January 31st. That is a 3-month stretch right there, friends. I guess actually just over 2 months, but across 3 separate months. And honestly, here's the thing. There is no reason to think this thing won't continue to roll right along, because Erin Matson couldn't do it by herself. Coach Karen Shelton couldn't coach it by herself. And so, I mean, this team should just keep right on doing what they're doing. Coach Shelton's not going anywhere. She's going to be able to help Erin and keep things going. And so you'll love to see it. That's number 2 on our list. We got to wrap things up with the team at the top of the podium, the women's tennis team, finally bringing home that elusive NCAA outdoor team championship. They were dual champions, national champions this past season. Pretty well, and with some, we'll talk about it all in just a minute, and honorable mentions to boot from my top 10 list. All coming up in just a second. All right, here we go. Let's wrap up this list of my top 10 most noteworthy items from UNC Athletics last academic year. Number 1, the gold medal winners at the top of the podium is the women's tennis team and their national championships. So, seriously, all these national championships, if you keep up with this at all, you know that the women's team has, for a long time now, dominated the ITA championships, which is the indoor championships that take place earlier in the spring. They've now won 4 straight, and they've been in the championship 9 straight seasons. 9 straight seasons as one of the final 2 teams in the nation. Ridiculous. And they've won 6 of those. They've won 6 of the last 9 and been the runner-up in the other 3. But the problem is the women haven't been quite able to do it at the end of the season with the NCAA Championship, which is played outdoors. For those of you that aren't tennis players, it is a different type. I mean, it's still tennis, right? But the ball bounces differently, moves differently. And so it just kind of caters to different speed. And that's why you see different people winning, like the French Open on clay versus Wimbledon on grass and US Open and Aussie on hard court. So that's where all of that comes into play. But finally, the ladies this year got over the hump, won that NCAA championship, and man, barely dropped a point in the NCAA tournament. They won 4-0, 4-0, 4-1, 4-2, 4-0, 4-1. Never surrendered so many as 3 points. 2 was the most they gave up on the run in the NCAA championships. Now, for those of you who don't know what that means, you start in tennis at the NCAA level with 3, at least at the Division I level, because when I played tennis in NAIA, we did it a little bit different. But at the Division I level, you play 3 doubles matches, and whichever team takes 2 of 3 of those wins 1 doubles point. And then you play 6 singles matches, best 2 out of 3 sets, and each of those is 1 point. And so it's basically like best 4 out of 7, if you don't know how they go. So anyway, Carolina never surrendered more than 2 in the NCAA championship run. And their only loss all season long was unfortunately in the ACC championship match. And even more unfortunately, that was against NC State, whom Carolina had beaten in the regular season. But it became all the more sweet. Do you know why? Because the team that Carolina beat in the national championship match was the Wolfpack. So Carolina avenged that sole loss this season. I mean, it was an absolute bonkers year for Fiona Crawley, who just seemingly won everything in sight. She won a bunch of stuff in the fall, won a bunch more here in the spring as well. Now, what you also might not be aware of is there was another national championship and another runner-up for the Tar Heels, because after this team event for the NCAA championships, there's the singles draw and the doubles draw. Carolina just couldn't quite bring it together in singles, but in doubles, the national championship doubles match was 2 Tar Heel teams. It was Fiona Crawley and Carson Tangwillig against Reese Brantmeyer and Elizabeth Schade. And man, it was a crazy match. Basically, the way it goes is in the doubles port, like when it's team, they don't play a full 2 out of 3, but here you play 2 out of 3. But if you go to a third, it's just like a super tiebreaker. And so Crawley and Tangwillig won 6-1, lost 2-6, and then took that super tiebreaker 11-9. Similar to the field hockey team, just handled ranked teams like it was their job. And oh, by the way, the vast majority of this team will all be back next season to just keep this train rolling. You love it. You love it. And you want to just keep seeing all this success for Coach Brian Calvis. Keep it going, ladies. Now, I promised you at the end of my top 10 list that I would give you a couple honorable mentions. Let me mention 3 of these really quick on the way out. Man, mention the just dominant program that women's soccer has been for so long. And you guys, they fell. It was so painful. 16 seconds short of a national championship. They played UCLA in the title match. We're up 2-0 with like 10 minutes left. Just right after that, in like the 80th minute, UCLA scored to bring it within 1. But still, it's like you got a 1-goal lead in soccer. You're feeling good. 16 seconds left. UCLA ties it up and then wins it in the second period of extra time. So painful. Second honorable mention is the wild and wacky game that was Carolina against App State down in Boone, North Carolina, the second game of the football season. I mean, this thing, if you watched it, you remember how wild it was. Sam Howell was there. I remember Drake May like ran a touchdown in and Sam was waiting like right where he ran it. So cool. These pesky Mountaineers, right? I remember years ago them knocking off Michigan, and obviously they recently beat Carolina. In this game, nobody could stop anybody. I mean, 63-61, that's a Big Ten basketball score. But unfortunately, we said this on one of the other shows. I can't remember if it was in the second or first episode of this series, but we talked about this game a little bit. Carolina led by 20, 41-21 heading into the fourth quarter. App State scored 4 touchdowns in the first 11 minutes to tie the score at 49. Carolina scored 1 in there as well. And in the final 3 minutes of the game, each team scored 2 more touchdowns. I mean, it was the craziest fourth quarter I have ever seen. And you might even remember like the what I'll call an ill-advised onside kick touchdown return from Bryson Nesbitt, who if he had just gone down, the game's over because you take a knee, App State can't call timeout and you get out of there. But thankfully, on both of those 2 touchdowns for App State in the fourth quarter, they went for 2, and Carolina was just able to stop them both times. So anyway, that's the second honorable mention, is that was one of the craziest games I have ever seen in my life. And then the third honorable mention is the men's golf team. Man, I thought they had a national championship won as well. So the way the national championship goes is you play just like a major in golf. You play 4 days of like everyone playing individual, but you tally all those scores for a team. After those 4 days, Carolina led the way. They were the number 1 seed. But basically what happens is you take those seeds and then you go into match play with the top 8 teams left. So the next day you play the quarterfinals and the semifinals. Carolina beat Arizona State in the quarterfinals, which was awesome because they were essentially playing on their home course. And then lost, the Tar Heels did, to Georgia Tech in the semis. And it just is what it is. Such a difficult national championship to win. I really thought Carolina was going to get it, but didn't quite. So, man, once again, this has been such a fun list to put together. I hope you have enjoyed going back through memory lane right here at the beginning of August as we get into the month that leads us up to fall sports kicking off, man. It's going to be so much fun. Again, I'd love to know your list. What do you agree with me on? What do you disagree with me on? What would your list look like? That's it for today's episode of Locked On Tar Heels. Thanks again for joining us. Tomorrow, Pat Kilby will be with us. We're talking Harrison Ingram and previewing him ahead of next season. You can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Heels. Follow me at Isaac Schade. If you want to email the show, lockedontarheels@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button, and again, leave your comments. Hey, I want to remind you it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. We'll talk again tomorrow, but until then, peace.